Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Have you or someone you love been a victim of a crime that's still unsolved? Crime Curious has teamed up with one of the top private investigation services in the Indiana and surrounding area. If you have listened to us long enough, you know that we do not seek out services or products that are meaningless to us or hold no real value. So you can trust us when we say that Corbett Investigations comes with decades of experience you won't find anyplace else. Corbett Investigations is run by a former homicide commander of one of the country's most successful homicide units, has put over 400 people in prison for homicide, handled over 1,100 death investigations, and solved 33 cold case murders. To be real with you, Mr. Corbett had a really difficult time telling us what we should highlight in this segment because he does not like to sound like he's bragging. Solving crimes has been his life's passion, and he has never done it for the accolades or recognition. He has a whole team behind his services that help him be so successful, as they specialize in things like blood stain analysis, ballistics, crime scene reconstruction, and forensic pathology, just to name a few. When you contact Corbett Investigations, you talk directly with Tim Corbett. He is hands-on with every case and can travel anywhere that's needed to get the job done. Corbett Investigations prides itself on honesty, truth, feet to the ground, real investigation work, and the strength to stand up to whatever is in the way of solving the crime. Corbett Investigations specializes in complex homicide cases, sex offenses, and criminal investigations that are old and new. Tim and his team have a reputation for finding witnesses and information that others could not. Although we hope none of our listeners ever need private investigation services, if you do, we recommend contacting Corbett Investigations and mention this segment on Crime Curious for a free consultation. Contact Tim Corbett today at 574-229-8115. You can also check them out on Facebook at Corbett Investigative Services, Inc., or their email, tim@tcorbett.org. That's tim@tcorbett.org. Thanks for listening, and now on to the show. Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
And Megan, let's shake all of our gree.
Okay.
Here we go.
We've got Toads and Bones and Chaz and okay.
Yes, so much. I love it. And let's just say for a moment, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy birthday.
It always fits.
Yeah.
It's our 3-year anniversary, my friend.
And cheers.
Cheers. There we go.
A glass of wine for us.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of you as well, if you feel so inclined.
That's right. Celebrating 3 years on air, creating content for you all. And we couldn't do it without you guys listening.
No. We love you.
Actually, if we had no listeners, we would just be sitting here talking to each other, which we do all the time.
And it is still fun, but it is more fun to present content that is helpful to the rest of the human race.
Yes, exactly. And so just thank you. Thank you all so much for keeping us on the air. This has been a crazy, crazy journey. And thank you all that have wrote us and just made comments like, you don't understand. I'm going through a really hard time, and turning on your podcast gets me through my day.
Or your drive.
Yes, exactly. Gets me through my work day. You know, whatever it may be, those comments may seem small to you guys, but they're not. They are huge to us, and it's truly what keeps us creating content every week for you. So
keep reviewing us, you guys. Go on and do reviews and keep sending us suggestions. We have a list a mile long because we have such amazing listeners that you guys have like pages worth of cases that you want us to cover, and someday we'll get to them all.
We will, and that's what's going to keep us creating.
It sure does.
Truly.
So. You never run out of true crime cases.
No,
it would seem
Which is good for you as a judge,
Kind
Megan,
of,
because
but
then
it is.
you have a day job every day too.
But we've jokingly said multiple times, because you doing your job as well and in CPS, our goal was always, and even when I was a prosecutor, wouldn't it be great to work ourselves out of a job because just nobody committed crime anymore?
Right.
It would be the same
would
with
be
this.
fantastic.
If there are ever no more crimes to cover
Yes.
on this podcast, then we'll retire and go into comedy.
We will.
But I just don't feel like it's going to happen now. I think there's always going to be something horrific to cover because, well, people.
Exactly.
Because people.
I couldn't have said it better myself, friend. And you know what? Speaking of that, let me bring you a case about people doing
Perfect.
horrible things
People
to one
doing
another.
horrible things.
Yeah. Actually, what I'm going to tell you is Lifetime created a movie about the case that I'm going to tell you about today.
Awesome. Do you think I'll like it? Because I have very strong feelings about sensationalized documentaries. So where they make it into a movie for people to enjoy, I often don't enjoy it and want to go back to the facts and only the facts.
No, you wouldn't enjoy it because
Okay,
it
cool.
strays from the facts, which is
Okay.
why I'm covering it on the podcast
Thank
to
you.
give you the facts. And actually, before it was a Lifetime movie, it was a book called A Murder to Remember by Anne Rule. And I apologize. Sorry, guys, I got that mixed up. A Murder to Remember is the Lifetime movie title. Anne Rule's book is called Empty Promises.
Okay.
So my apologies.
This sounds
I mixed that up.
very familiar to me.
Both the book and the movies make a statement of just being inspired by, which means that they're not a documentary and not all the details are accurate. It is for entertainment purposes, but it is based on the case of facts that I'm going to give you today.
Love it.
The names are changed both in the Lifetime movie and in the book, just so you know. And so to give you the actual story, this is the case of Julio and Candra Torres.
Okay.
And I'm going to take you to the summer of 1976.
I wasn't even born
You
yet.
were not, nor was I.
I was a glimmer, though. I was a thought because I was born roughly 1 year later,
Oh, yes.
the next summer.
And my husband was a couple of years away from living in Oregon, very close to this situation.
yeah,
actually,
he's
at
so
that
old. He
time.
was probably ready to start kindergarten by then, right?
Maybe. When was he born?
It's
You're not
gotta be
wrong.
clo-
He was
I'm
in
not-
preschool.
I'm not wrong. I know.
Oh, it'd be funnier if he listened.
Those pretty blue eyes will fool you, but he is older than he looks or
That's
seems.
right. Or acts.
Or acts.
Exactly.
Well, I wasn't going to go there. He's your spouse.
You have full permission. You've known him longer than I have.
Just in fairness, he should become fully mature in the next year or so.
Fingers crossed,
They
my
reached
friend.
mine as well.
Fingers crossed. Is 52 the magic number?
Oh, no, actually it's 55. So he's got a few years to go.
Yep. I knew I wasn't done raising him yet. But anyway, so Candra and Julio actually were an Oregon couple. And Candra was 16 at the time that her husband,
Okay, all right.
yes, I said husband, Julio Torres, was 21. All right. And
Somebody's parents signed paperwork.
They sure did. And I mean, I'm not going to judge. My parents got married in 74 at 16.
Yep.
So
They used to do that.
They sure did. It happens.
16 is the legal age of consent in most states for sexual activity, and it used to be in that time frame, maybe a little bit before the 70s, honestly, more like the 50s and stuff, but it went up through there. Parents would often sign off so that their children could get married at the age of 16. That's the youngest most states would allow. There might be some variables. But
One less mouth to feed.
Yep.
Typically, families were larger back then. And
school wasn't necessarily a priority.
Nor was
Farm
it
kids
required.
and rural kids would often drop out so that they could go onto the family farm or just go get a job or enlist.
Yep, exactly. It's a different time, that's for
A
sure.
little bit.
Now, this beautiful couple, they were actually camping in Mount Hood, Oregon to celebrate their 1-year wedding anniversary. So that means that they were married at the ages of 20 and 15.
Oh, they did sign off earlier than 16.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, they did.
Were there children?
No.
Okay, so this wasn't a you got her in trouble, you're getting
No.
married situation. This is love.
You found yourself pregnant.
This is what happened, right?
No,
You
yes.
will marry my 15-year-old daughter that you've impregnated. That's
Right.
how it worked. No, this is love.
This was just absolute true love and a couple making it through their first year of marriage and celebrating going camping. And they also took Candra's lifelong canine companion, Rusty, along.
I'm in love already.
She literally had Rusty as long as she could remember in life. And they were having a really great time camping when they randomly met a man named Thomas Brown.
Why do I feel like I'm not going to like Thomas?
We don't like Thomas.
Okay.
No, Tom Brown. No, not a fan. No, it's never good when I'm inserting another adult into the story this early on.
Especially camping. Like, it's the setup for a horror movie right now.
You are in, Mount Hood, Oregon.
Which I bet is beautiful.
Yes.
Emerald green and mountains and trees everywhere. And these people are enjoying their nature, camping, hiking.
And there are some variations to exactly how Tom Brown came about this couple. In one variation, and I think this is the one that is most accurate, not only because I've seen it multiple times, but also there's a court document that mentions his truck. So I think that this is the most accurate description of how they met. But Tom Brown, by the way, is 29 years old. So he is a bit older because Julio is 21, Candra is 16. But there's a couple of variations that they met while they were fishing. Like Julio was fishing and he stumbled upon them. But the one that I actually think is more believable is that the couple were on their way to finding a fishing hole. They had their fishing equipment, and Thomas Brown was in his mud-covered pickup truck when the couple came upon him as he was driving down to find a good fishing spot. The truck is mentioned, and so that's multiple times, and that is why I think that that's actually how they met, is that he stopped and was like, oh, hey, you looking for a good fishing hole? Now, Thomas is instantly attracted to the young Candra.
Sure.
Naturally, right? So Julio freely gives the information that they are planning on going fishing. Thomas takes that opportunity to say, oh my God, I know a great fishing hole.
This dick.
It's top secret. I can take you right to it.
Hop in.
And it's in a very secluded secret area because it is my secret fishing hole, right? So he is telling them, come along with me. Now, instead of a fishing hole, Thomas lured the couple deep into the wilderness to what was described as a creepy and very isolated location. So they have to camp. They're going to camp there. They have to camp with this Thomas Brown. Now,
not probably how they planned on spending their anniversary.
Probably not, but also 1976. I don't think that it's unusual that you just this is still in the days of hitchhiking.
Hitchhiking and hippies.
Yeah, inviting somebody to come camp with you with pure intentions isn't out of the ordinary. I agree. And so at sundown, the three of them set up camp. And Thomas is being, of course, charming and super friendly. He's not telling Julio, I'm super attracted to your beautiful young teenage wife.
No, they're destined to not come with you if you disclose that information originally.
Now, the next morning, Thomas and Julio decided that they are going to go hunting while Candra stayed behind to cook breakfast of the food and supplies that they had. All right? Now, before long, a gunshot rings out pretty close to where the camp was, and suddenly Thomas Brown emerges from the shadows where Candra, and trigger alert, you guys, because Rusty was with Candra the dog.
Yeah.
And so trigger alert to animal cruelty, because he comes out of the brush to the campsite and he just shoots Rusty right in front of Candra.
Motherfucker.
Yeah, her lifelong dog. I know she's only 16, but she's had him probably since she was like 2. I mean, she actually says that she's had him as long as she can remember, her whole life. So this is obviously very traumatizing, okay? She's standing there in shock and asking him why.
Right.
Why did he do that? And he's like, well, you think that's bad? I just shot your husband too. And so he tells her if she wants to stay alive, she's got to come with him.
She's going to do what he tells her to. So he has murdered her husband and her dog, and now she's being kidnapped.
Correct. And remember, she is 16. These are not adult. This is not a fully developed adult that we are talking about. And I say that because it's going to be important later.
Okay.
So Thomas takes Candra deeper into the woods. And I'm sure that we all know where this is leading, right?
He's going to sexually assault her.
Absolutely. He is not taking her into the woods just to show her a secret fishing hole. All right. So he does that. He repeatedly sexually assaults her. Right from the beginning, he starts brainwashing her, telling her that her husband's death was an accident and that he was going to save her life and spare her from all the pain and suffering if she just endures the sexual abuse. Okay.
Okay.
And lets everyone know that Julio's death was an accident. And he's just repeating this over and over again between sexual assaults. That remember, you do this for me, you're going to stay alive. Julio's death was an accident when I was just trying to hand him the shotgun, and it went off, and Rusty was attacking me, and I shot Rusty in self-defense.
Okay. So he's creating his own narrative.
He is.
And
while traumatizing her over and over again.
Which is where the brainwashing comes in. So he's repeating this, which is instilling itself in her brain as trauma. And now she's going to have a trauma response. And it's going to be based off PTSD and statements that were made to her.
Correct.
Okay.
Not off of actual memory and facts and truth.
Right. Based off of what's been screamed at her, told to her, whispered to her while in the middle of...
threatened to her as well.
Of sexual assaults.
Remember, he has a gun.
Yes.
Okay. He didn't give that up. He still has a gun. So she endures this abuse and brainwashing for 3 full days. And her husband, Julio's body, is found 3 days later on July 27th, 1976. And shortly after, she and Thomas emerge from the woods as well, because Thomas knows that the body has been found. And so the police are obviously looking for her.
Right.
At this point in time.
She is now a missing person and possibly a person of interest.
Exactly. So they come out of the woods. Thomas is acting very like disheveled and confused, like they were lost in the woods for 3 days and had just been surviving. Okay. And
what a planner he is.
Oh, yes. He tells the story that he had been telling Candra to say over and over again, that Julio was accidentally shot and killed when they botched a rifle handoff, okay, while deer hunting. And the gunshot alarmed the dog and started attacking.
So he shot Rusty.
In self-defense, all right? Now, the other key part of this is that he tells the police, and Candra told the police, that she witnessed the entire thing.
But she didn't.
Correct. So when he is telling, like, yeah, she saw the whole thing, she can tell you this is what happened.
But she can't actually describe how he was shot accidentally.
No, not at all.
How it was handed to him, none of it.
No, but initially she does tell the police, well, I saw this, it was an accident. Now, this is before they really get into like deep interrogation, right?
Yes.
They're just doing their initial investigation, okay? And so initially the case
hold on a second.
Yeah.
Did they also indicate then that they went looking on foot for help and got lost?
Yes. They were very
instead
deep
of using his
woods.
truck.
They were deep into the woods.
Right, but they didn't take his truck, did they?
No, he didn't have. His truck was left back at
the site
where they had originally met, and then they went deep into the woods, quote, looking for that fishing hole.
Okay.
And then,
even though her husband's dead back at camp?
Well, right, but not by the truck.
I know.
Yeah. Yep. That's
saying,
the bigger problem.
We know right off the bat that there has to be at least one, if not two, law enforcement officers that even from the get-go are like, I don't like it.
I don't know, because initially they do rule it as an accident.
Shit. Okay.
It's 1976. I don't know. And you know what I hate about that statement is because I feel like someday, 50 years into the future, somebody's going to be like, it was 2024. They didn't know what they were talking about.
But that's true.
It is, because science and technology is going to continue to evolve.
Oh,
and it's going to enlighten more and more. Truly, for better or for worse, people, it is going to continue to change.
Right. In 50 years, they'll run a dead body through some type of a scanner, and it'll pick up all the trace into the cyber world, and it'll be up in front of you like a computer screen, and they'll be like, oh, here, it's pinpointed this person. That's
Correct.
the killer.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, I think it's
Right?
going to really, really continue to advance in that way. But also just our understanding of human nature and the way we are evolving as humans is going to continuously change as well.
Right.
And back at the naivety of the day, you know, back when even it was quote unquote safe to hitchhike. Well, it really wasn't. People.
It never was.
No.
They weren't reported.
Exactly. We know better now. We know human patterns of behavior better now, right? So I just think
There's a trail of bodies from New York to California.
Sure are. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think that in this situation, like initially they're like, okay, she's confirming it. Here's this 16-year-old. Why would she lie about how her husband, they're newlyweds, you know, they're celebrating their 1-year anniversary. Why would she lie about the death of her dog?
Right.
That she's had her whole life and her husband? Like this must have been how it went by. But as days go by, Candra is having really vivid and strange dreams.
Like reality?
Yes. She would wake up and she would have these very vivid memories. And she was, of course, very confused. Now, there are not resources at this time, that are readily available for trauma survivors. And so she goes to her parents and tells them what she thinks really happened based on these vivid memories and these night terrors and things that she is experiencing. And her mom is just like, honey, I don't think things happened how you are recalling. I think that there has been a murder and you need to go to the police. It was mom and dad that were like, this doesn't sound right.
And she hasn't acknowledged being sexually assaulted either.
No.
So it's almost Stockholm syndrome.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. We are going there.
Okay, let's go there.
Mm-hmm. So she goes back and tells the police that she does not think her original recollection of the events were accurate. She tells them that what she believes the actual truth is that she didn't witness anything, that she was making breakfast with Rusty by her side, and she heard a gunshot, and then a couple of minutes later, Thomas came back to the campsite, shot Rusty in front of her, and abducted her and repeatedly sexually assaulted her. Now, the police are skeptical, to say the least, at this point. Of course. They didn't really know who to believe. So they decide to set the two up for a 1976 polygraph test.
Oh, my. Was there an Etch-a-Sketch?
Right. Tell me there was.
Listen, technology has come a long way.
It has. And as expected, maybe not as expected, but I guess for me it's expected. At this point, things get more complicated.
Oh, yeah.
So Thomas Brown.
Is there deception? Isn't there deception? She doesn't even barely know what's real, so her responses are going to be off.
Exactly. Thomas Brown has no problem taking a polygraph.
And passing?
He just reiterates that the shooting was an accident, self-defense for the dog, and the two spent the next 3 days lost and trying to get out of the woods. And he passes the polygraph test.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Candra Torres.
Really good liars can do this.
Absolutely.
They can convince themselves. You have to be able to control, though, the involuntary blood pressure, heart rate. Tell yourself the same story enough times that you believe it.
Well, and I think that his brainwashing of Candra did exactly that for him.
Sure.
Megan, this guy fully believed his own story.
He made his own truth.
That's why it was so easy for him to pass this. It was
terrifying.
Polygraphs record emotion. They record your neurological responses based on emotional reactions.
And body response.
Yeah. He has convinced himself so well that this is what happened that he's cool as a cucumber when the machine is hooked up to him. Now, Candra tells her version of events that she did not witness the shooting and that she was told by Thomas that he murdered Julio and then raped her for 3 days. Candra fails the polygraph.
Son of a bitch.
So now you see what I mean by
of course
it gets a little complicated? Because the police are like, holy shit, what are we supposed to
We've already
believe?
ruled this an accident, and the alleged perpetrator, has passed his poly.
Correct.
But the victim is not.
Yes, but someone who is coming forward saying she's a victim is not, and is coming forward with some real strong information. Like if she, and to us today in 2024, it makes sense why she failed that polygraph,
sure.
Right? We've already talked about the trauma response. So of course, that doesn't surprise me. And especially with the technology at the time. Now, the police have to get, at this point, I feel like those officers probably felt like they had their genitals in a vice.
Yes, I know.
Because they have to reopen the case. And at this point in time, they want to believe her. It's not that they didn't. There wasn't any information that she was mistreated by police, that she was just completely dismissed. None of that. It's like they empathized with her and wanted to believe her, but they needed to really rely on forensic evidence to disprove the very first story that they both told.
Okay.
So that then they could shed some plausibility
I'll give you
on
this.
hers.
I'm shocked they reopened the case, period.
I agree.
Because after being told a version and he passed, some law enforcement agencies would have said, no. It can't be used in trial, but he clearly passed. That lends probable cause or lack thereof. We aren't reopening it. It was an accident. Correct. Easily could have happened.
I think so. You know, and we know because of some of the many tragic cases that we've covered on this podcast in 3 years, it does happen. Mm-hmm. And it will happen. And I think that it even is going to continue to happen. When you're talking about budgeting of the cost of reopening a case and re-looking at the forensic evidence and things like that, sometimes those decisions are made based on money even.
I agree.
So I'm shocked that they went with this.
I'm glad they did.
I think that part of it is they could feel Candra's reaction to when she was telling the real story and her honesty of just, listen, I don't know. Like, this is what I'm remembering. It's not like she came to them and was like, I lied before.
Right.
You know what I mean? She came to them like, this is what I'm experiencing, and this feels more like the truth. And I was sexually assaulted, and I don't know what to make of it. And then they started kind of putting those pieces together. This is what I really loved about the detectives, though, Megan. They knew that they were out of their scope of practice.
So they turned it over to an expert?
Well, they wanted an answer to the question of why would Candra seemingly lie in that first interview.
Beautiful.
So they call on a psychiatrist to collaborate with, and that is when the police learn about a fairly recent syndrome called Stockholm Syndrome, which I want to educate our listeners a little bit more about it. Because yes, we have thrown that terminology around in several cases before, but I want to tell you a little bit more background. Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological response where a captive begins to identify closely with his or her captor, as well as their agenda and demands.
Yes.
The name of the syndrome is actually derived from a botched bank robbery in Sweden, in Stockholm, Sweden. In August of 1973, 4 employees, now remember, this was 1976.
So it's
when our
so
case
new.
is happening.
It is so new. 3 years.
3 years. In August 1973, 4 employees at a credit bank were held hostage in the bank's vault for 6 days. During the standoff, a seemingly intense bond developed between the captive and the captor, the captives and the captor. One hostage, during a telephone call with the Swedish Prime Minister, stated that she fully trusted her captors, but feared that she would die in a police assault on the building.
Yeah.
She was scared of the police more than she was the captors.
The captor had very successfully convinced them that they were not here to do them any harm. Mm-hmm. They just wanted to be let go, and the police were going to kill all of them instead of let them go.
Yes. Yep. Psychologists who have studied the syndrome believe that the bond is initially created when a captor threatens a captive's life, deliberates, and then chooses not to kill the
Trauma
captive.
number 1.
Exactly.
Decision number 1.
Mm-hmm. The captive relief at the removal of the death threat is transposed into feelings of gratitude toward the captor for giving him or her their life, like a second chance.
Yes,
okay?
and here we have the manipulation piece.
Yes. Yep.
That redeems them. It's the redemption piece.
Exactly. And it really is just about being, when you are a typical human, you are usually grateful when somebody gives you something that you value.
Your life.
And when someone is giving you your life and manipulating you into thinking that they're giving you their life, you instinctively express gratitude for that.
Specifically kidnapping victims.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and that's what the bank robbery victims were as well.
They were held hostage for 6
false
days.
imprisonment, kidnapping, and they form a bond and become a little family.
Absolutely. Now, the bank robbery incident proves that it takes only a few days for this bond to cement, proving that early on, the victim's desire to survive trumps the urge to hate the person who created the situation. So hear that again. Our will to survive and being grateful for survival trumps the hate that you really instinctively should want to extend to the person who is creating that situation or holding you captive.
It also won't work on everyone.
No.
So her situation is not unique. She is a 16-year-old whose brain hasn't fully developed. Stockholm syndrome in the bank robbery is actually more interesting because you have adults and like 6 of them.
A lot of them.
You would have thought that there would have at least been one person who's like, fuck you, you're holding me hostage.
Sure.
We ain't friends.
Yeah. Yep.
But
no, they all did.
Master manipulation.
Mm-hmm. The survival instinct is at the heart of Stockholm syndrome. Victims live in enforced dependence and interpret rare or small acts of kindness in the midst of the horrible conditions as good treatment. They often become hypervigilant to the needs and demands of their captors, making psychological links between the captor's happiness and their own. So indeed, the syndrome is marked not only as a positive bond between captor and captive, but also by a negative attitude on behalf of the captive towards authorities or anyone who would threaten the captor-captive relationship. The negative attitude is especially powerful when the hostage is of no use to the captors except as leverage against a third party, which has happened a lot with like political hostages, war hostages, things like that.
Well, Charnell, in those cases, the captor never actually forms a bond. They're expressing one and they get the buy-in, but they don't actually have any feelings toward the person. We also deal with situations where the captive literally buys into their own fantasy and they develop feelings.
Yes.
We've seen it before where they are actually in love with the victim that they're harming and don't think that they're hurting them. I treated her well.
The Girl in the Box episode is a great example of that. Mm-hmm.
They just have no insight then. Yep. Like, oh, I guess I kidnapped her, but she loved me. We were in love.
Right. Truly. By the 21st century, psychologists have expanded their understanding of the Stockholm syndrome from hostages to other groups, including victims of domestic violence, cult members, prisoners of war, procured sex workers, and abused children. The American Psychiatric Association does not include Stockholm syndrome in its Diagnostic and Statistic Manual of Mental Disorders, also known as the DSM, mainly due to the lack of consistent body of academic research, because it's rare, because there's only about 8% of hostage victims that show evidence of Stockholm syndrome. So it's not in the DSM-5, but it is a recognized psychological condition that can happen.
Okay.
But I do want to tell you about 4 aspects that need to happen to fit Stockholm syndrome and why I feel Candra's case does. So you have to have trauma. We have that obviously noted. There, right?
Yes.
You have to have isolation. They were alone in the mountains for 3 days.
It's more isolated than being with other prisoners in a bank vault.
Mm-hmm. You have to have that manipulation, that indoctrination. So him telling her over and over again, it was an accident. It was an accident. And remember, she didn't witness it, you all. Y'all. The Yankee way to say y'all.
Very appropriately
I don't know
stated.
what just happened.
I like you all. Yeah. I, however, say y'all all the time, even though I'm an English major, but I do like to inappropriately butcher the English language intentionally. Intentionally.
So we do have that indoctrination, all right? And then you also have to have a promise of a reward. And for her, it's survival. Remember, he promised, I will let you live if you just go along with this and you tell everybody that you witnessed it and that it was an accident.
If this is your truth, if this is what you believe, if this is what you say, then you will live.
That's right.
We're going to be just fine, sweetie. You just have to remember this way.
Yep. So initially she did, right? Absolutely, her case fits.
Till she got away from him.
Exactly. And interestingly enough, Megan, it started within 3 days of being away from him.
Okay.
So it's not like this was something that took, months or years or anything like that. But it started within 3 days. She started with those vivid memories and being confused.
The dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Your dreams, you should trust those, you guys.
Absolutely.
Real things manifest in those memories, daydreams, and actual dreams. And if she's waking up in the middle of the night going, God, this doesn't feel right. I think I was assaulted. I think he was murdered. Then she started trusting that too.
Correct. Well, her egoic brain that is very easily manipulated was at rest when we're asleep. And so other parts of your brain can work.
She was traumatized, but she wasn't actively living the trauma. She was, her brain started to heal itself is what was happening because she was back in a safe place.
Correct. Where she knew she really is going to survive now, right? Because he's nowhere around. After learning all of this about Stockholm Syndrome, detectives know that they really need answers from Julio's autopsy and ballistic science to corroborate not only Candra's story, but also Stockholm Syndrome, because it hadn't been used in front of a judge yet.
Okay.
Yeah. So they know they have an uphill battle.
Is this the first judicial test of Stockholm Syndrome in the U.S.?
I don't know if it is in the U.S. I'm going to say it's probably damn close because it certainly is for this state.
The science is so new.
It is.
I can only imagine as an attorney, just using my legal mind, how new this was to have to present to a court, because you have to show that there is reliance in the technique that you're using, in the science behind it, to even get it admitted, to even have an expert testify.
Right, exactly. And so, Megan, like as I'm sure you would have done if you were in that time as well, they wanted the forensic evidence to speak for itself as well. So then it could also just go ahead and further drive home the truth to what they're presenting about Stockholm Syndrome.
Because that's not circumstantial evidence. That's real.
It is, yes.
Ballistics is real.
So let me tell you about his autopsy a little bit. So the autopsy showed that the weapon was a hunting rifle, all right? It was long-barreled, and the bullet entered Julio's face on the left side with a slight trajectory down through his cervical spine and exited through the right side of his neck.
This is not how we accidentally hand guns to people pointed at their heads from a downward trajectory.
Sure isn't.
If he would have handed it to him barrel up, and it would have shot him like in the lower jaw or the lower part of the cheek and went
and
up.
Exited up.
Absolutely.
Right. No.
Not saying it can't happen, but just in other cases we've seen, and I don't know, my experience in this, that's not typical of an accident.
Accidental handoff.
No, it is
not.
And
remember I said long-barreled.
You did, because it's a long-barrel rifle or shotgun.
So I want you to start thinking about how close you and I would have to stand to one another to try to hand off a gun, a long-barreled gun. Okay?
Well, that's true, because I would be close to you to hand this off unless I was very inappropriately standing 3 feet away from you, handing it to you with the barrel pointed at your head.
Exactly. Extremely inappropriately.
It's not proper gun safety.
It's not. But let me tell you a little bit more about the autopsy here. There is not any gunshot residue noted on Julio's skin or clothing. There's no gunshot residue. Now,
so he couldn't have been that close.
Right. If they're simply handing off this gun, there should be gunshot residue all over the place because they would be close. So what ballistics did is they tested and they recreated the situation. They did some testing inch by inch, okay?
Can I just throw something out there?
Yeah.
And you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it wouldn't shock me that they might find that the victim was lying in a supine position, maybe laying down, and that the gunshot was far enough away that it would appear that somebody came in standing in the entry to the tent, and the ballistics
He wasn't
went downward.
in a tent. No, they were out hunting together.
I thought he shot him in the tent.
No.
My bad.
Where'd we get a tent? Did I say tent?
You said camping, and my mind went right to tent.
That is hilarious. No.
My mind did it.
Yeah.
My apologies, dear listeners.
Oh, my.
Dear gentle readers. This is why Megan needs all of the evidence presented very clearly. Like, Charnell, you should have said they went camping with no tents. I'm kidding.
No tents.
There's no requirement that you let me know that.
She was cooking breakfast and they went deer hunting.
Okay,
yep,
my brain
They
assumed.
weren't near a tent. Oh, interesting. I like knowing
Sorry.
I like knowing how human brains work. But this whole time you've been picturing a tent.
So
Nope,
your
there's
answer
no
to
tent.
me is no, that's not how it happened.
not how
Thank
it
you. We
happened.
can move on now. I'm going to have a drink of wine.
Let me tell you about the ballistics testing, though.
Please. Clearly, I'll just listen to the story.
They decided that they were going to pick a target and inch by inch back away from it and decide how far away, at what point, Megan, they had to determine how far away from the target they are before it stopped leaving
GSR.
Yep, exactly. The gunpowder residue, okay? Because there was none found on Julio at all. Remember, on his skin, on his clothes, nothing. And so it was determined that in order to not leave any gunpowder residue on Julio, the barrel of the gun would have had to have been the barrel of the gun, not the person holding it. It's a long barrel gun. So remember, the person holding it has to be farther away than this as well. The barrel of the gun would have had to have been at least 36 inches away, which is 3 feet away.
Yep.
So the barrel of this gun is 3 feet away from you. So I'm a good another
3 foot at least. You're
yes,
at least
a long
6 foot
barreled
away.
shotgun. Exactly. That's how I'm going to hand you my gun when we're 6 feet away from each other, approximately.
Barrel first.
Right. This is how we safely hand off a gun.
Mm-mm.
No. So they determine that the other thing is, keep in mind, he did do a demonstration for the police of how he handled it.
not how he demonstrated
Not
it.
at all. He demonstrated that he was standing within arm's distance of Julio to transfer the gun to him. Now,
Very smart of them to document his initial story of how he handed the gun to him.
Yep. The thing about Mr. Brown, Mr. Tom Brown, is that he is very confident that the state has nothing on him and no way to prove his case, especially since Candra had originally confirmed the same story. But of course, he knows nothing of Stockholm Syndrome. He knows nothing of ballistics testing. And so he starts bragging to his cellmate about how much the state can't prove, all while admitting simultaneously that he did kill Julio.
Oh, you dum-dum.
Because he wanted his young bride for himself.
He was going to continue the relationship.
Yes, absolutely. His intention always was to brainwash her into this was an accident.
How did he come to be in a cell? Did they find probable cause to arrest him at some point after the ballistics?
After the ballistics and the convening with the psychologist, they went ahead and I apologize because my brain did not put that in the. Thank you for asking that.
That's okay.
Did not
I
put
screwed
that
up royally before with the tent, but I at least knew we had not talked about being put in jail.
Him being arrested. No, they went ahead and did arrest him on first-degree murder charges. Okay. And that's when my apologies about that. But it wasn't until after the ballistics testing didn't line up with his story and with talking to the psychologist about Stockholm Syndrome.
I agree. Mm-hmm. And they know at this point, you guys, that there's probable cause to arrest him. That's why he's sitting in jail. But you have to know, from a prosecutorial standpoint and a law enforcement standpoint, they're still shitting bricks. They know that they have PC to get him arrested, but probable cause only gets you so far.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is going to have to go in front of a jury where they're going to have to prove this beyond a reasonable doubt with brand new information, brand new science.
Brand new science,
Brand
exactly.
new science.
I'm glad that you said that, though, about being in front of a jury, because we're going to get to that as well.
Okay.
But I 3 years into this, and I can't believe I skipped the part about where he was arrested. So we learned, we're always growing and evolving.
This just goes to show you that in 3 more years, we will just be expert.
Maybe I'll get it right in another 3 years.
Right. And I won't jump to conclusions, which is really a terrible aspect of somebody that holds my employment. But I'm sorry. I assure you I listen better when they present a case to me.
For sure. When you're actually getting paid to listen, I understand.
Judges are allowed to ask questions. And more than once when the attorneys don't make it clear, and I know you'll find this shocking, but sometimes they don't. I ask the witness, so was he in a tent?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. No, he wasn't in a tent. They were in the woods. Oh, well, that makes a big difference as I scratch out my notes.
Yeah, exactly. Well, good. Anyway, so here he's got this cellmate, and he is telling them just all the things the state doesn't have on him. So then the cellmate's like, So you did do it. So these are all the things they haven't found out. So why don't I just go ahead and like tell them?
Right. Because I really don't like it here.
Right. I don't want to sit with your dirty ass.
That a really good way for me to get out of jail is to tell on you.
Correct.
Because you committed a murder and they're probably going to let me out on this robbery that I committed. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we don't always
There's
love
no honor
cellmate confessions.
I don't. I hate them.
I know.
I've been very vocal about that, but I'm not saying they're not accurate. You
True.
have to have an indicia of trustworthiness.
Yeah. And in this case,
like talking through the pipe.
I loved that one.
Me too.
Through the pipe. But in this case, it wasn't so much that the witness, the cellmate confession came forward with, oh, he told me that he did it. He literally was like, hey, he told me all the things you guys don't have on him, so here it is. It was almost like a reversal, right? Like, and of course, I'm sure that this person used this to their advantage. Why wouldn't they?
Of course, they
I
had
would
to.
Too. Don't judge. My God, I want out of there as well.
Jailhouse attorneys are in abundance. You can always find another inmate to give you legal advice. But let me assure you that should any of you find yourself in that situation, you should not ask them for advice. And certainly don't fucking tell them what you did.
No, definitely.
Your
don't
attorney
do that.
won't like that.
Nope.
Your defense attorney will be like, oh, that was a head smack. And go, why, man? Why?
And for this guy, what the witness who turned state's
witness.
Yes,
the
state's
human
witness.
that turned state's witness.
The pushing point for him was that Thomas Brown was extremely vocal, that not only about the things that the state didn't have on him, but also that his intention was to kill Candra and both of the prosecutors that were going after him afterwards. And he could do it because he's already killed men.
Oh, yeah.
So that guy, and then he's like, okay, I better tell someone. Let's see what I can do. And I don't have information on if he got out, or if this dude released early. I'm sure he bargained something
But he
for
also,
himself,
if he was a good criminal, knew that if he had knowledge that a governmental employee, that being a prosecutor, was being threatened and he didn't report it, someone might drag his ass into it and call it a plan.
Oh, God. Yeah.
So
yeah,
you got to, if you, now see, here's your advice. If you ever find yourself in a position where you're in jail and someone says this stuff to you, please cover your ass and report it so you don't go down.
Yeah, exactly. If anybody is plotting to kill Megan or Charnell, we're actually, you can't do that. You can't hear about that and then do that.
First of all, please don't. But also,
that'd be a real.
I feel like that it will end badly for you. I'm just throwing that out. It might end badly for us too, but it's really going to end badly for you.
Yeah, that's fine. I will haunt your ass.
Absolutely, as we say, as we're rubbing the crystals and bones.
Yes.
If you don't think I can't voodoo you from heaven or hell, I can.
Yes. Well. And it was for him, for this state's witness, he's like, okay, people's lives have been threatened. I'm going to come forward. But not before Thomas Brown being as cocky and cocksure, if you will. I love that word.
Cocksure.
Cocksure.
I love it.
Mm-hmm. My mom says it sometimes, and she has she's so sweet and innocent. I love it when she says that.
If you put the emphasis on the first syllable, it makes it even more entertaining.
Right. And so he waived his right to a jury trial, Megan.
He wanted a bench trial?
He wanted a judge to hear and make all of the decisions on his future.
That never happens in murder cases.
I know.
Never. I mean, actually, I lied. You did present one once. Well, I presented one. Remember?
I think I've presented one.
Well, we presented the one where the man was convicted of murdering his wife, but then we found out later that it was Pam Hupp that did it.
Yes.
And he requested a second trial because it was a mistrial and setback, requested a bench trial, and that went very well for him because the prosecutor should have backed down on that case anyway and realized they didn't have enough to convict him and they had the wrong man.
Right.
But that's not this situation.
No.
This guy is literally waiving his right to a jury trial and being like, hey, judge, you decide my life and death sentence.
Correct. Because I don't think that you've got anything on me because she already told the police the same story that I told her to tell. He's got no idea what's really going on.
Again, you guys, his defense attorney has got to be shitting an actual brick because he's like,
I would think.
No, don't waive your right to a jury. No, sir, don't do that. Well, are you sure you want to do that? Are you competent to do that?
Megan, what's the other thing you're going to tell him not to do?
Talk.
Okay.
Testify.
There you
go. Please exercise your rights and don't testify.
He testified for himself. So here we have a judge.
Limited situations where that should occur, guys.
Yeah. We have a judge that is hearing all about the workings and mechanisms of Stockholm Syndrome, which is unprecedented at the time, and it was very intriguing. Okay.
A 70s judge wants ballistics here.
And it was convincing. Okay. Yeah. It was informative and convincing. They, of course, have the ballistics expert testify. They have the coroner testify about the autopsy. All the right things happen in that situation. But then Mr. Brown testifies himself, and he tries to demonstrate how he tried to hand off the gun, which on cross-examination, as I'm sure
I would
you understand,
eat him alive.
Did not go well.
I want to be the prosecutor on that case.
For sure.
You've seen me attack somebody before when I was prosecutor.
Verbally,
I made them cry. So did the attorney. She cried too after I was done with them. And that's exactly what would happen here.
Well, especially after the judge
Happy
has already
birthday
heard
to me, I would say, as a prosecutor.
The end. Happy birthday.
Couldn't get better.
Better
Please
than an
take
orgasm.
the stand.
Thank you.
Yeah, truly, it is, depending on the case.
Yeah. Well, and the judge had already heard the ballistics evidence and the Stockholm Syndrome evidence. Yeah. And then this dillweed gets up and tries to poorly demonstrate how he handed off this long-barreled shotgun and didn't leave gunpowder residue on him that close to him.
Can we just hope that it was Julio from heaven whispering in this guy's ear, just that karmic whisper going, you know what, you should testify.
You should.
Right?
You're
sending all the energy.
They've got nothing on you. That is how the karmic energy
I hope it
works.
was you, Julio. Mm-hmm. Legit, man. You deserve the justice.
So the judge goes ahead and gives his verdict of
guilty. Shocking. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked.
Mm-hmm. And Thomas Brown is officially sentenced to life in prison in 1977 without the possibility of parole. To this date, as far as I can tell, y'all, he remains behind bars, incarcerated at the Oregon State Penitentiary. He was 30 at the time.
29.
Yeah, but by the time he's sentenced in 1977,
30 or 31,
so he was 30, and it's 2024, so yeah, he is probably still alive, just living out his. I couldn't find where he had died. That
information wasn't in there?
I don't know. There's not a crap ton of information about this. I found a couple of segments, YouTube segments and whatnot, but it wasn't robust with information, like how I like information to be. But so it's possible that by now he has passed away, but the last article that I read was written in 2019.
Okay.
So and it said that.
I love this case.
Want me to? I have a little update on how Candra's doing.
Oh, please.
She remarried and she has a big family. She has kids and grandkids who she adores, of course. She lives in Nashville, Tennessee, one of our favorite places.
Yes, ma'am.
And she actually used to reside in Florida for many years, but where she ran a childcare business.
Okay.
For 19 years.
Speaks right to your heart.
Sure does. But she actually moved to Nashville, Tennessee to be closer to her family and her grandkids. And now she works as a nanny in the city.
Love it.
And in 2014, around the time that she made that move to Nashville, she got herself a new little pet named Lucy. I'm sure she had other pets, but that's just her most recent that I could find. And she actually credits her faith and spirituality to be the guiding hand that led her to find love within herself and with others, even after the tragedy.
God bless you, Candace.
Isn't that just a very interesting, and it is Candra.
Candra?
Mm-hmm.
Why do I do that?
Names, listen.
Candra, though, is a pretty inventive name for the 1970s.
It is different. I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, I know.
Even when in my professional job, people that I have worked with for decades, I will accidentally call a different name. It does not mean anything other than that my neurons aren't firing accurately.
Yeah, I do that.
That's all.
And sometimes I do it on purpose.
Can I tell you about a New York Post? I'm going to bathe you.
This is my bath?
Now. I'm going to bathe you now. Yep.
The 3rd anniversary / birthday brain bath?
It is.
I can't wait.
It is. And it's not long, but I think that...
I've been there.
Drinking my wine.
It's only fair. I've had my glass and you've been talking the entire time.
I have. I know. I've had exactly 3 sips this whole time. Wanted Florida man. Of course, I'm going to bring you a Florida
Thank
man
you.
for our 3rd anniversary.
God bless you.
A wanted Florida man tried to throw cops off with "I don't live here" sign. This happened just in 2023, my friend.
He put up
October.
a sign that said, "I don't live here."
Let me read it to you. But essentially, yes. A Florida man wanted by the cops tried to throw them off his trail by placing a big sign outside his house reading, "Johnny Yates does not live here." It did not work.
No.
Johnny Yates, 41, who was wanted by the Polk County Sheriff's Office on aggravated robbery, false imprisonment, and tampering charges, was eventually locked up. Deputies showed up at his Lakeland home at around 2:45 p.m. after getting a tip that he was inside his house, despite the sign that he doesn't live there.
I'm not home.
When the deputies arrived, they noticed a note written on a dry erase board in front of a window that said, "Johnny Yates does not live here."
That's precious.
You know, but who's going to lie on a dry erase board? Those boards aren't used for lies, right?
I think that it's illegal to lie on a dry erase board.
I think so too. Those are very official.
No, it's your First Amendment right to lie on a dry erase board. You can put anything you want on it. You might be responsible for the consequences of the lie that you write on a dry erase board, but still, write what you will. Like if you write Megan and Charnell are sluts on your dry erase board, you better be able to prove it, because otherwise we're going to sue you.
And I dare you to try to prove it, because I am a very, very monogamous person.
What did I say? In high school or in college this one time.
I don't even have fun stories like that.
You keep your dry erase boards to yourself.
I've led a very vanilla life in that way.
Well, I was born in the 70s and we didn't have camera phones. So there we are.
So the article goes on to say enough was enough, and the surrender smoke was dispensed inside the house, and 4 people exited the home, but not Johnny. Deputies called out some more, but still no response from Johnny. So the second helping of surrender smoke was put inside the home to kind of waif around a bit.
It's a smoke bomb, y'all.
And finally, when they brought in the K-9 Dexter, entered the house.
Dexter gonna bite you right in the ass, man.
Well, they located Johnny, who was hiding in a modified chest of drawers. He was promptly arrested and taken to jail. I do want to tell you,
with the dry erase board, because I take that into evidence.
I'm guessing that one of the 4 people who exited the home that were not Johnny Yates was definitely a female, because if you could see, I want to show you how beautifully written this "Johnny Yates does not live here." It is gorgeous writing.
I have seen men with fantastic penmanship to the point I would have thought a female wrote it.
Never have. I've never met anyone that organized as a male in their life.
None of them are doctors.
It is all, of course,
or lawyers.
I'm pretty certain that all of my children will end up in a profession such as that, because I question their education sometimes when I see their handwriting.
All of my adult children have terrible penmanship.
But this one's gorgeous.
We got graded in penmanship. My penmanship is ridiculously pretty.
Mine,
so gorgeous.
Too. I don't think they get graded in it anymore. They get graded in typing now.
Yes. Probably. Which is also gorgeous on my part.
Yes, know. I can type really well.
I'm a fast typer.
Yeah.
I was just at that cusp where we had, it wasn't computers, it was typewriting, but it wasn't. But it wasn't.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at that.
Fuck you, Charnell. Was rude. But it wasn't like that typewriter. It was an actual keyboard for typing, right?
Oh, that makes me feel better.
Right. So it was nice and smooth when it went into my DOS system on the computer. You bitch.
I was picturing an actual typewriter going ding, and you'd have to.
Yep. Exactly. And you know what's funny about that? While you're yucking it up over here, it was more advanced in high school than what I got when I went to the prosecutor's office in the late 90s, early 2000s, because we still legit had a typewriter.
That's because
we had computers too, but certain things went on the actual typewriter.
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We're a poor community, but we are proud.
We're poor but proud.
Yes.
Poor but proud.
Actually, that's kind of my motto for life as well.
I like it.
Same life, same.
Oh,
Lord. Okay.
Well, happy anniversary and birthday to all of you Especially
Yes.
those of you that have legit stuck in the 3 times. You've been through a lot. You've been through, I'm your second co-host.
Yes, exactly. I was going to call it a divorce.
I know you were.
That
and
was
that's
just to
funny.
be funny, but it wasn't really.
There was a divorce or at least a separation. And then I came here. Hi, guys. Inserted myself right in it. And it didn't take her long to fall in love, you guys, because come on.
I know.
Seriously.
My mom always said I fall in love too easy.
Yeah.
But this time it's going to stick.
It is. It's going to stick. we'll be together forever.
We are.
I don't know if that's true or not, but it feels right to say.
It does.
It does.
And it is true because you're not going to shake me.
Oh.
I'm very hard to shake.
I'll never quit you, Charnell. I'll never quit you.
I'm just a girl sitting in front of another girl.
Asking you
her-
to love me. We Notting Hill this shit,
we
and we're
did.
legit holding hands. So
Oh, Lord. Well, thank you all so much for hanging in with us all these years. Or if you're brand new to us, hey, don't leave us. It gets better.
Yeah. Go back a few episodes.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better. We're still like this.
For sure. This is just who we are as humans. And we thank you for accepting us as we are.
Thank
we
you.
accept you as you are as well, as long as you're not a murderer. That's
because
really.
murderers are dicks.
They sure are. We hope that you keep listening.
And keep it curious.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.